What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fully Inflated Football Podcast. Marcus Whitman here. So I'm heading off to Mexico tomorrow. A little beach vacay out in Cancun, Mexico. And I've been grinding away at this Madden roster. Going to address that right away. So many people asking about it. It does get a little tiring when you see ETA question mark pop up in your Twitter feed about 5, 6, 10 times a day. It's coming, guys. I've been working all week. I was hoping to get it done by the end of the week. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm about done with front sevens, and then I've got to finish defensive backs. And then that's just the beginning, and then I got to get into transactions, update the draft classes. So still lots of work to do when I get back from Mexico. A little vacation's going to feel good. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get to the point I had hoped before I go, but that could change depending how fast I'm able to work. But all that said, I did want to get my reactions out there. I did also not want to go on vacation without reacting to a plethora of news that has broken since I did that little video podcast, which I'm not doing today because of time, but I do want to do that more often with kind of the Sports Center style. I just didn't have time to do the graphics and stuff, but the feedback on that has been great. So if you're watching this here on YouTube, do hit that like button. I'm going to get this in podcast format. It will be up on Spotify, but as far as the other platforms are concerned, I'm still working on that. Maybe when I'm in Mexico, actually, I will have time to actually look into that. So today we're going to try and keep this a little shorter. I know that I say that a lot, but I really just want to get my reactions out. So no mailbag, no rebuilding any teams. We're probably done with that, honestly, now that free agency has started. We can really focus on draft after free agency. One last note here. I will be playing the kickoff of Season 5 in the TFGO League on YouTube. So I'll be streaming that live against the New York Giants as we look to defend our Super Bowl championship with the Green Bay Packers. So do tune in here on YouTube. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/ThatFranchiseGuy. You can follow all of the games. I don't do them all on YouTube. So let's get into it here. Talk about some football. And we're going to start with the big bomb. Odell Beckham traded to the New York Giants. And I'm not free of this. On Twitter, everyone freaking out, basically attacking the New York Giants. How could you do this? This is, a travesty. There's no plan. And I was not alone in that. I thought this move alone really didn't make a lot of sense. I don't even know if that's appropriate value for Odell. There's rumors that they may have taken less to send him to the AFC, which in my opinion is inexcusable. I mean, who are you worried about taking a Super Bowl championship from you in the next 2 or 3 years that you're trading Odell to? It just, if you can get the second overall pick for Odell, I don't get why you take less to send him to a different conference. So that aside, in terms of the value, they got what they got. I do think there are aspects of this trade to defend for the Giants, and we will talk about the Browns afterwards. Like I said, the move alone, I would not have made this move. But we did just commend the Oakland Raiders for following my biggest philosophy when it comes to building football teams, in that the first rule in the game of holes is stop digging. And you passed on a quarterback in probably the best quarterback class in at least 10 years to draft a running back. You have stuck with your 38-year-old quarterback who's potentially the worst starter in the NFL now that Blake Bortles is gone. At some point, you do need to start looking for the future. And the thing is, you trade away Odell Beckham. You're not going to be an elite passing game with Eli Manning this season. So what they're saying is, we're going to build up this team. We're going to sign Golden Tate and basically run the ball and exist with Eli Manning this year. If they think they can win a Super Bowl this year, good for them. As illogical as many of these moves Dave Gettleman has made, I highly doubt he's sitting there thinking they're going to win a Super Bowl this year. the plan has to be putting this team in shape for a quarterback of the future, taking after the model that so many teams in the last few years have proved that can work. The Eagles with Wentz, the Browns, the Chiefs, the Rams. You put an offensive line around a young quarterback, and you can develop him. And the truth is, the New York Giants, from center to right tackle, going into this offseason, were the worst offensive line in the NFL. Basically had non-starters playing those positions all year. So you get pick 17, you get a third-round pick, and then you do get a safety to kind of fill the void of Landon Collins. He's definitely a step down from Landon Collins, but he's basically a throw-in here. So let me just try and defend this move, because I know the Giants fans are looking for some explanation for this, and I tweeted out asking if anyone had an explanation, and it just kind of led to me thinking more and more about it. So let's just say the Giants at 6 take an elite defensive player. A defensive line type would be the way that I say. You build your team up through the lines like you've seen the Eagles do in your division. So let's say you get Ed Oliver, Josh Allen. Because at some point you do need to add elite defensive talent to this defense. You can't only focus on the offense that has been so bad. And let's say at 17 now, where you got what you traded for Odell Beckham, say you can get a what's the tackle out of Washington State? His name always escapes me. Andre Dillard, who I think is a fantastic pass protector, can play right or left tackle. One of the better tackle prospects to come out in a long time, honestly. Or maybe Jonah Williams falls to you, or you grab Juwan Taylor. I would think one of those three should be there at 17. So all of a sudden now, you're lining up Nate Solder, who's 30, and I think it's a little bit of a bad rap. He wasn't great. He doesn't play up to that contract, but he is probably an above-average starting tackle, although slightly above average. You've got Will Hernandez, who, in theory, behind a even better offensive line, should be pretty good. Say at center, you use the 6th pick in the 2nd round to take Elgton Jenkins or Garrett Bradbury. You now have Kevin Zeitler, who you traded for. I loved that move for the Giants. Best guard in the NFL last year. I thought that was a terrible move for the Browns to give him up. Made up for it by getting Odell Beckham for 60 cents on the dollar, for what it seems. And then he put Yodny Cajuste. See, I told you, I always forget his name. I just said it. Andre Dillard. Between him and Yodny Cajuste, I get all those syllables mixed up. But you line those 5 up, that's damn good. That's like arguably the best line in the NFL if those rookies pan out. As with anything, if you draft well, if you're New York, you just added more picks, this can work out. So you put those 5 out there. You put Eli Manning back there. You got Saquon Barkley, the best running back in the NFL. You sign Golden Tate for what I'm assuming is a front-loaded deal. You've got Sterling Shepard, an underrated wide receiver. Evan Ingram. Like, they can exist as an offense. That would be a better offense than they have had, honestly, since they have had Odell Beckham. And like I said, you're never going to have an elite passing game with no offensive line and Eli Manning with Odell Beckham. He's underutilized. Now, there are aspects of this trade that are indefensible if you're the Giants. But like I said, stop digging is the biggest rule here. So, you just paid Odell Beckham a bunch of money. You're going to continue to pay him to play for the Browns. You just drafted a running back 2nd overall and passed on Sam Darnold, who's playing in your city for another team. There are things in the past here under the Gettleman regime that are, in my opinion, inexcusable. But I do see the plan. I really do. Now, they have to execute that plan. If they spend the 6th pick on Montez Sweat, who in my opinion is going to be a bust. Now, I could be perfectly wrong about that, and that's fine, and that wouldn't be the worst pick. I don't think he's worth the 6th pick in the draft just because he ran fast at the Combine. But if they take Montez Sweat and Daniel Jones at 17, and they both bust, then the Odell Beckham trade is an absolute joke. It's a fireable offense. So you have got to draft well, and then that 3rd pick, who knows what they can turn that into. Maybe they can find one of these second to third round wide receivers that could fall to the end of the third. So, they have to draft well, and, you're putting a better surrounding situation here for a quarterback of the future for the Giants. And I have spent way longer talking about the Giants than I thought I would, but I do think that there are elements to this trade that I understand, but the execution moving forward and the biggest thing here is the Giants have to show that they have an actual plan. And to this point, that's up in the air. They do seem to be scrambling, and every move seems to be pulling this team in a different direction. I applaud a team like the Miami Dolphins this year, whose plan is just to let everyone leave, open up cap space for the future, suck it up, stink it up next year, and have a high draft capital. I commend that they have a plan and they're not freaking out and just doing random stuff just to do it. The Giants have to show the direction that they want to go and stick with it. For the Browns, great move. I do think a tackle at 17 would have been nice for this team. I have some questions about this Browns team, who's now going to go from that fun, sub 500 team with the exciting young quarterback to the team that is expected to be a super team and win a Super Bowl. I think that playoffs, if this team doesn't make the playoffs, that'd be a colossal failure. But I think this team, with Baker Mayfield on that rookie contract, is expecting to win a Super Bowl, if not this year, then the next year. So the expectations totally change here. And, as with any team, you don't just, carbon copy a team's success and put it into the next year. The Cleveland Browns last year had the best pass-protecting offensive line in the NFL. Baker Mayfield was the least pressured quarterback in the NFL, from my understanding. I might have to double-check those numbers. I know he was very well protected, if not number one, then top 5. You traded the best guard in the NFL to put a rookie in there, or a second-year player, who you do have film on. The kid out of Nevada, Austin Corbett, they spent a second-round pick on him. You've got your own internal evaluations. If you think he can come in and be good, then good on you. But I doubt he's going to come in and be a literal wall like Kevin Zeitler was. And you bring in Greg Robinson back at left tackle, who, it'd be easier to list the teams in the NFL that he has not played for than the teams that he has. And you've got kind of a vet there at right tackle, Chris Hubbard, right? Or one of those veteran tackles who's kind of a borderline starter who kind of he's been on the Steelers, but could be gone at any point, really. And then you've got a good left guard and a good center. So a lot of pressure is going to fall on Baker here. I think that it's almost a given that his offensive line takes a pretty good step back. They also had phenomenal health from left guard to right tackle. They had their starters play every single possible snap for the season. I'm not kidding. It was 1,061 snaps. Left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. That continuity speaks volumes. You cannot expect that again next year. What happens when, Joel Bitonio, sprains his ankle and misses 2 or 3 weeks? Well, that's the type of thing that when I say you can't just carbon copy one team's success and put it to the next year, those little things add up. Those little things can be the things that impact a young Baker Mayfield who, was great, but he also had 3 interception games. He also had throws that he seemed to be pre-decided. He still needs to continue to develop. I don't know if he's ready to carry this team to a Super Bowl. And at wide receiver, you're loaded. I mean, you can't deny that. And then defensively, the D-line, I think, is good. Myles Garrett is probably going to emerge finally as that Von Miller, DeMarcus Lawrence, Khalil Mack level superstar edge rusher. A 70-plus hurry or a 60-plus hurry season type of year for Myles Garrett, I would expect. As far as Sheldon Richardson and Olivier Vernon go, they're more names than they are star players to me. They are plus starters, I would say. and Larry Ogunjobi is fine. So you've got a pretty good D-line. I don't think I'm ready to call it an elite D-line yet. It's very good. You've got questions in the secondary outside of Denzel Ward. Jabril Peppers was really good for this team last year. So you're basically banking on Denzel Ward and Demarius Randall in the secondary. They don't really have any other corners. I think the defense is going to be a little overrated. So it's going to be a really good football team. I've said that they're probably favorites in the AFC, the Browns. The AFC North. I think the Ravens and Steelers take steps back. I think the Bengals are a bit of a sleeper team. But the expectations have changed here in Cleveland. So we'll see how it plays out. Their offseason is pretty much done. They don't really have draft capital at this point. But one thing is sure, they will be fun to watch. And I've just started a tradition with my dad of going to a game out there in Cleveland every year. Started last year. We had a blast. The Browns fans are awesome. I feel happy for you guys. I didn't like the Baker Mayfield pick, but I've moved on from that. I will be rooting for this Browns team. I think they're going to be a blast, and I hope it works out. But I do think there is some tampering of expectations that is needed. So let's move on. That one trade we talked so much about, but that was really the highlight of the offseason. So I think 15 minutes on that is warranted. Next time I talk about the Green Bay Packers, who kind of woke up the last 10 years. It's been just kind of a joke that this team has just ignored free agency. The players got complacent, and Ted Thompson essentially ran this team into the ground as far as the roster is concerned, with old draft and develop philosophy that was basically in place here in Green Bay since before free agency became a big thing. Which doesn't really make sense because they splashed with Reggie White when free agency was kind of blowing up, and then they just decided to ignore it for 2 decades. But they go out and make some moves. Now, are they good moves? So they get Zadarius Smith, was kind of I'm not going to call him a rotational pass rusher for the Ravens just because they have so many good players there, but he was a rotational pass rusher for them. He did play, I think, more snaps than any edge rusher for that team. Really solid season. He had, 72 hurries or something, like a 78.8 pass rush grade. Would have been by far the best edge rusher for Green Bay. By the way, Nick Perry re-signing him in a season that they let Casey Hayward go for a quarter of the money, just inexcusable. Well, it might have been a year later, but that money should have been used on Casey Hayward and Micah Hyde. Nick Perry is going to be like the 6th highest salary cap hit this year for dead money. And that dude is borderline, he can't stay healthy. Anyway, he's gone. The Packers just did not have an edge rush last year at all. So you bring in Zadarius Smith. If he can repeat what he did last year, which was a one-year wonder type of, analytically you would look at his production for his career and say, wow, that was a one-year wonder, kind of a contract year type situation, almost reminiscent of what Nick Perry did in the last year of his deal. So that it was a lot of money for a guy that has a lot of potential to not be good, but he also, has never been a full-time starter. It's very reminiscent of when the Bears signed Pernell McPhee, kind of a similar player, coming from Baltimore, more of a power rusher, surprisingly good in coverage, good player, instant starter for Green Bay. They needed to do it because this roster is in shambles. Now, if he can't be as good as he was last year, you're going to get stuck with a pretty big cap hit. I know it's a pretty front-loaded deal, but there's still going to be money on the back end of that thing that is potentially going to hurt you down the road, just like Nick Perry is this year. And then you get Preston Smith, who is a very similar player, a power rusher, a guy that's been kind of a rotational rusher for a deep Washington defense. So you're bringing in 2 players that fit the mold that they apparently want. They want some just nastiness on the edge, which is what you get. You're not going to get a lot of finesse or bend or speed from these guys. Personally, I'd rather have a 1-2 punch. Obviously like a Von Miller, Bradley Chubb would be ideal, but I'd rather have, one speed guy, one power guy. You can move them around, get the matchups you want. this is really just two power guys, two big forces. They're going to be, a good complement to that good interior defensive line. It should be a very good run defense, but run defense doesn't really matter. The one signing that I loved here is Adrian Amos, who they get on a total bargain. Now, he's not a superstar, but big plays just killed this team. And they had the second worst of 64 eligible safeties starting every game for them, Kentrell Bryce, who spent more time hitting his own players and injuring his own players than he did the opponent. He cost this team multiple games. So he's gone. You replace him with Adrian Amos, who allowed no touchdowns, was, I believe, second by PFF for big-time plays allowed for safety. So you get a smart player, an athletic, physical dude who's just going to, be a better version of HaHa Clinton Dix, essentially. And you get him on a bargain. Less than $10 million, 4-year deal. Really team-friendly deal there for Adrian Amos. I don't think Amos's agent did the best job, but, that's a different conversation. So the Packers finally spend. They also go get Billy Turner. That was kind of an overpay for me. Versatile dude. They want depth at guard. I don't think that fills their hole at guard, personally. I see him as an expensive, move around depth, like sixth lineman. I don't know if it's ideal to start Billy Turner. He could prove me wrong. He had a good year last year. So the Packers, building through free agency for once, much needed. They're going to put a much more competitive roster out there. They have plenty of draft picks. They have beefed up this defense, hopefully added some toughness to their team in general. Billy Turner, if anything, is tough. He will be available. Just injuries in general have been a total backbreaker for this Packers team for years. So they're hoping to get players who are going to fight through those injuries, unlike a Nick Perry. And, be there and just help this team be competitive so that Aaron Rodgers can do his thing. That's what they're hoping to do. So let's move on, talk about the other NFC North team that made some interesting headway here. Anthony Barr, Minnesota Vikings. So Barr had signed an edge contract with the New York Jets, and the reason I bring that up is edge players are systematically paid more than off-ball linebackers, which Anthony Barr is. And that's basically the only problem I have here for the Vikings. I agree with bringing him back if you can. Now, if it's coming at the cost of signing a guy like Roger Saffold or, upgrading at a bigger position of need, then I don't know how much I love it. There's a guy on the market right now, Zay Brown, who frankly is a better off-ball linebacker than Anthony Barr and will cost less, so there is that. But Barr is Zimmer's guy. He does some nice things as a blitzer that fit well with that scheme. So they're basically saying, let's run it back. We've got Kirk Cousins here. There's nothing we can do about that. And let's just hope we can bring back the same roster we had last year, that many thought was a Super Bowl competitive roster, and hope that our guys haven't regressed too much by age, and we can run this thing back for another year and be the team we want to be. I don't think that's the worst plan. It is a very talented roster. I've always said Anthony Barr is overrated simply because he's playing out of position. I was excited to see him play as an edge rusher, which he was in college. I just thought that this had kind of run its course in Minnesota, that he is not a great off-ball linebacker. He does some nice things, but he doesn't have the instincts you look for. He doesn't really thump between the tackles. He's kind of a liability in coverage. He's very stiff. He's a good straight line runner. If you're trying to run a toss or a screen or a stretch run, Anthony Barr is going to blow that up. But, you ask this guy to cover a deep crossing route, that's not going to work. So it's a fine move. They're running this thing back. They want to just keep this roster talented, milk this window out. I get it. I think there would have been better ways to use that money, but there were certainly worse ways to use it as well. So I'd give it a solid C+, bringing Anthony Barr back. Vikings should still be competitive next year. Then we've got the New York Jets, who made a bunch of moves. Just, you credit Madden. They had a phony tweet. I like to rip on Madden, but they had a phony tweet scrolling through the franchise settings, turning salary cap off. That's basically what the Jets are doing. And they signed Le'Veon Bell, C.J. Mosley. Not a bad haul. Now, they had to back up a Brinks truck each to bring them in. And I don't know if there was actually that big of a market for Le'Veon Bell, but I love the Le'Veon Bell signing for them. I've always said don't pay running back, but when you have this much cap space, who the hell cares? And C.J. Mosley, again, overpay, sure, but I mean, this dude is one of the best linebackers in the NFL. He takes risks, and his PFF grade is low, but he's a leader. He's going to, be an upgrade for this team, certainly. So Le'Veon Bell is a huge addition here, because if Sam Darnold has a problem, it is that he doesn't take the easy throws. He doesn't take the check down. Well, you just got the single best check down target in the NFL, Le'Veon Bell. And when things go rough, when this offensive line doesn't hold up, when you don't know what to do with the football, you can just give the ball to Le'Veon Bell, and he's going to go to work for you. And you hear former quarterbacks talk all the time about how a check down that goes for 20 yards, a scramble for 14 yards can just be a mental relief when the game, when the ish hits the fan. To just have those easy plays that move the chains, get the crowd excited, those can be the things that get you back into your rhythm. That is what Le'Veon Bell is going to offer this team. Whatever he offers as a runner, I don't really care. He's a really good runner between the tackles. The best yards per attempt in NFL history, I think, which is incredible given his patient style of running. He's not going to be running behind that Pittsburgh O-line. That yards per attempt is going to come down. He'll probably still rush for 1,000 if he can stay healthy, get a good 10 touchdowns, but what he offers in the passing game is what you're paying Le'Veon Bell to do. I have no doubt about that. And that's why I'm okay paying him. If you're paying him to come in here and not catch the ball 70 times, then it's an overpay. But if he's going to help your young quarterback develop and just take pressure off of him, then great. So I like everything the Jets are doing. I think they are a sleeper team in the AFC next year to at least, be a playoff team. So, good for them. As far as how much money they're paying these guys, I don't think it matters. They had like $100 million in cap space. These deals are going to be pretty front-loaded, too. And you've got a quarterback on a rookie deal, so spend that money. Why not? Jordan Hicks signs with the Arizona Cardinals. Personally, I think Jordan Hicks is arguably as valuable as C.J. Mosley. He's much better in terms of being a consistent cover guy. Great signing for the Cardinals. This defense next year is going to be pretty good, I would expect. Maybe they take Nick Bosa. Maybe they take Kyler Murray. Who knows? I think either way, you're going to have a pretty good defense. You got Terrell Suggs in there who can still play. Chandler Jones, a tier 2 edge rusher. He's not quite in that tier that I would say goes everywhere from DeMarcus Lawrence up to Khalil Mack in terms of edge rushers. He's probably, in that second tier. And then you got Patrick Peterson, possibly the best corner still in the game. Budda Baker was not healthy last year. He's a tremendous cover, slot corner, strong safety type. Low-key has been a good replacement for Tyrann Mathieu. Cardinals will be more competitive next year, and if they take Kyler Murray, which I still would do, just because it's going to be a spark plug for that offense, I think the offense is still going to be pretty stagnant with Josh Rosen in there. So the Cardinals will be pretty good. Jordan Hicks, a good cover guy. And then the Panthers signing just 2 excellent signings for the Panthers. I would say arguably the 2 best signings of free agency in terms of value. I tweeted out like a heist gif from Need for Speed when they signed Matt Paradise. 3 years, 27 mil for one of, if not the best centers in the... Well, there's better centers than Matt Paradise, but he's a top guy. And they needed this. The Khalil brothers are washed up, can't stay healthy. They're gone. They needed a center. They needed to find out what they were going to do at tackle after they let the other Khalil, Matt Khalil go. And they bring Darrell Williams back, a guy that I thought was going to get Trent Brown money. Darrell Williams was the best right tackle, certainly maybe tackle overall in 2017. And he comes in this year, a lot of hype, expectations, loses his ACL in the first week, but Darrell Williams, Taylor Moton, who broke out this year, Matt Paradise, you've still got, what's his name at right guard? Name's escaping me. Wears glasses in his Madden picture. But he's a good player. Left guard's a question, I suppose, but you can find a left guard when you're surrounded by this much talent. The Panthers are doing a great job this offseason. Defense might take a step back. I don't know what they're going to do at edge rush. Probably going to be addressed in the draft, I would think. And they could use some corner help as well. But you do have those linebackers. But Cam Newton could not throw the ball the last 5 weeks of the year. He had a surgery on his shoulder. You got to keep that man healthy. And you have now arguably the best tackle duo in the NFL. I would assume Darrell Williams is going to move over to left tackle. So, and then you add a center like Matt Paradise on that contract. Yeah, sign me up for that. Look out for Christian McCaffrey to lead the league in rushing yards next year. I know he's not like the ideal between the tackles runner, but he's impressed me in that regard, and you know the Panthers want to run the ball. And then you factor in his pass-catching ability. I hope he can stay healthy. He's a little more slender. If he gets that workload, I don't know if he's going to hold up. That was a big question for me coming in. But if he can stay healthy, Christian McCaffrey's going to lead the NFL in all-purpose yards next year. I will cement that right now. Then we've got the 49ers making moves. So they already signed Quan Alexander, which I thought was a great move. Front-loaded deal, just a good cover linebacker. And then, they make two moves here that I actually didn't love. I've said that that's an underrated front office and that they're, my Super Bowl, not pick necessarily, but I love that bet, the 49ers. Now, as a pack, so the 49ers trade a second-round pick to then give Dee Ford a ton of money. And as a Packers fan the Packers were in this market for Dee Ford, I'm glad that the Packers did not do this. The future second for Dee Ford is fine, but the contract that he gets, 5 years, $85 million, I don't know where the guarantees sit. To me, it screams kind of contract year, then fall off. He's a really nice player. He is probably the best number 2 pass rusher in the NFL. So if they get Nick Bosa here at number 2, which they very well could, you're going to take some pressure off of Dee Ford, and he can kind of do his thing and maybe repeat what he did last year, to which then he would be worth the money. If you're asking him to be your number 1, I don't know. But they did need help at that position. He's a really nice player, and they have cap space to give. So I think it was the team to make this move. They certainly were in a position to do that. I don't know if the value was there for that move, but sometimes it just doesn't matter when you have cap space and expectations and a need. Sometimes you just got to do it. So I understand it. Not going to be overly critical of it. I do just have some questions. And then Tevin Coleman, they seem to just want to have a running back that is healthy any given week. So whether it's Tevin Coleman, Matt Burrito, or Jerick McKinnon, they're paying Tevin Coleman and Jerick McKinnon a bunch of money. It's fine. It's running back position. It doesn't really matter. Not going to really drone on about it. Shanahan likes Tevin Coleman. He had him in Atlanta. He's got more power to him than Breida and Jerick McKinnon, who we need a nickname for Breida and Jerick McKinnon, assuming they're both back next year, because they are literally the same player. They're like the same build. They're both super fast. They're both pretty frail. Like, they get hurt all the time. They can both catch pretty well. Same exact player. Literally just, give them the same number, put the same name on their back. It doesn't matter. Same dude. Tevin Coleman's a little different. Kind of the same style, but physically has more power, so he's going to be probably the touchdown guy on the goal line, I would think. Him and Juszczyk. Don't think they bring an Alfred Morris back. Then the last kind of move here I have on my list. Looks like we are going to be a little short today, which is good. I'll have more time to get back to the Madden roster. So Eric Berry gets released, and of course, as with any player that gets released, Josh Kline just got released, and every team in the NFL who still needs offensive line, which is like 20 teams, is like, Vikings! Josh Kline, let's go! Lock it in! Like, there's a reason these players are getting released. Like, Eric Berry has played 3 games in 2 years. And I love Eric Berry. I absolutely love Eric Berry. One of my favorite players in the NFL. I hope he comes back healthy and earns another big contract. Because he, in his prime, was right there with Earl Thomas as the best safety in the NFL. Little different of an impact, more of a physical player than Earl Thomas. A little bigger, a little better in run defense, but not quite as rangy. But he's torn his Achilles and came off the cancer thing and was really good. Really good. But this Achilles injury was clearly maybe even more than an Achilles injury, which is saying a lot because that's one of the worst injuries in sports. We don't know if Eric Berry can run anymore. He looked pretty bad when he came. He didn't look pretty bad. He looked really bad when he came back for the Chiefs. And that was supposedly after over a year of recovery time. So, for all the fans out there, shout out to A-Crush on my Discord, if you're here, A-Crush. But Vikings need to sign Eric Berry. Well, you have Anthony Harris, who was the 6th highest rated safety in the NFL by PFF last year. Not saying he repeats that, but Anthony Harris is probably a better safety than Eric Berry at this point. He's faster. He's going to be more available. Now, Berry offers some leadership things. He offers some upside if he could come all the way back, but I don't think the Chiefs take a cap hit to release Eric Berry and then spend that money on a different safety if they think Eric Berry can still play. I don't think anyone in that organization has anything against Eric Berry. So just buyer beware. I think he gets a 1-year, $3 million contract with one of 3 teams. There's 3 teams in this league that consistently take chances on players like this. The New England Patriots don't necessarily have a need, but, if anyone could save them, it'd be them. The Cleveland Browns with John Dorsey there, who's familiar with Eric Berry, who's already made it very clear that he has a bias towards his Kansas City guys and is willing to take a risk. Or the Oakland Raiders, just because that's what they've been doing, is taking all the rejects from the league and putting them on their roster, also interdivision. It's going to be one of those 3 teams that gives Eric Berry a pretty small deal. And everyone's going to freak out on Twitter like, let's just pick a team, the Indianapolis Colts. We had $3 million. We have $98 million in cap space, and we can't give Eric Berry $3 million. Yeah, because Clayton Gathers is your strong safety, and you have one of the rangiest free safeties in Malik Hooker. You don't need a slow Eric Berry who is an injury concern and is going to hinder the development of someone else playing. Now, again, I hope it works out. I just don't think it will. He hasn't played at a high level in almost 3 years. So I just wanted to touch on 7 of the best free agents remaining. Give a quick guess as to where they're going to land. Ronald Darby, cornerback from the Eagles. I think he's awaiting a pretty big payday. He saw his buddy Stephon Gilmore leave him in Buffalo, or was he still in Buffalo? I can't remember when he left, but probably his buddy get absolutely paid in free agency. And Ronald Darby's a similar type of athlete to Gilmore, an elite level corner athlete, has had a really hard time staying healthy in the NFL, but when he's out there, he's a really dominant corner. The Kansas City Chiefs are rumored. That's a really high-risk, high-reward signing for them. Whoever gets him is getting that high-risk, high-reward player. The Chiefs do make sense. They desperately need another corner. So we'll see how that plays out. And Ndamukong Suh, I've got a pretty strong prediction here. The Los Angeles Chargers, they need some help on the interior there. He's out in LA, so he's close to home. He's now slipped through the market a little bit, so you can probably get him on a 1-year deal that's not going to hinder this team down the road. I think that would be a great signing for the Chargers. Jared Cook, rumored to New England. I could see him back in Oakland. I could see the Green Bay Packers wanting to bring him back, get some more speed at tight end. I think those 3 teams, I could see the Saints having a good use for Jared Cook there. Pretty good tight end. Green Bay probably made a mistake letting him go, and Oakland might be doing the same. Justin Houston, still really good year last year. You would probably expect more regression, getting older, a guy that's been beat up over the last few years, but can probably still be a high-end number 2 rusher. If everything goes right, you're getting an absolute steal, a number 1 edge rusher. There's either a big market for Justin Houston where he's weighing multiple offers and just letting teams increase their bids. So there's either a huge market for him or not a big market at all, and we're going to see like a 1-year deal for Justin Houston. You could throw any number of teams here for Justin Houston, but I do think that the Indianapolis Colts would make sense. Then you've got Ezekiel Ansah, who is definitely an overhyped player but can still play. He's a number 2 guy, number 2 edge rusher. He's probably just waiting on a big paycheck. I don't think he's going to get it. A team that comes to mind there is the New England Patriots. If Matt Patricia puts in a good word to Belichick about Ezekiel Ansah, I could see him being a tremendous fit as a flexible piece in that just multiple defense that Bill Belichick does so well. He loves taking, freak athletes, former first-round picks that slip through the market and, are able to land here where he can, these guys go in the first round for a reason. They have specific skill sets that are elite. Ezekiel Ansah's his size and speed and power. Now, you take a guy in the first round hoping he develops other skill sets. That didn't really happen with Ezekiel Ansah. But what Bill Belichick does is he takes those guys, he knows his scheme better than anyone, and he executes it better than anyone executes any scheme in the history of the NFL. And if he just needs a big, fast, strong dude at defensive end on 3rd and 12, well, he can get Ezekiel Ansah on a $4 million deal for a year. And on that play, in that moment, he can be the best player in the NFL. And that's what makes Bill Belichick so great. So if Ezekiel Ansah can be that guy, I could see that. I could see Detroit bringing him back as well. They still need another guy next to Trey Flowers. Shaq Barrett is a name. Now, as a pass rusher, he's good. He's not, he's a low-end number 2 edge rusher for sure. But he offers other things. He's physical, smart player, 3-4 outside linebacker who can be that third guy, or if you're desperate, can be a starter. He covers really well. So if he's cheap, I think there's a lot of teams that could use his services as a 3-4 guy. The New York Jets come to mind. He could be what they wanted when they tried to sign Anthony Barr. He's basically a less athletic Anthony Barr. And then Zach Brown got released by the Redskins. Honestly, kind of a mistake, in my opinion, if you're Washington. I think Zach Brown was kind of he might not be a great leader per se, even though he plays a leadership position at middle linebacker. He might not be the smartest player, but he really was, in a way, the identity of that defense that I've talked so much about, just being a nasty, hard-hitting, fast, attacking defense. I think you lose a lot of that identity by letting Zach Brown go, by just releasing him. Like, I get that you're hoping to get Reuben Foster, but we don't really know what the situation's going to be there with him. I think this was a mistake, letting Zach Brown go. And, he has his flaws. He can be kind of an idiot at times and gamble, even more so than some of these other linebackers that we've been critical of. And there's even reports that he'll just straight up ignore his assignment, which would be really frustrating as a defensive coordinator if he just does his own thing. And sometimes it pays off and looks really nice, but that's still really annoying. If he decides to just blitz or shoot a gap and because of his athletic ability he makes a big play, that's the type of thing that people are going to be like, oh my God, Zach Brown's the best linebacker in the NFL. Because it will look incredible when he does his thing, but there are flaws to his game. But, this dude's just mean and fast and big and athletic. I would want him on my team. For sure. So I think anyone could really sign him. New England's another team that comes to mind. If Bill Belichick thinks he can get him to do his assignment, then that would be just deadly. So that's the podcast today. I'm going to Mexico, so I'll see you fools later. I will literally see you later at 4:30 Central, 5:30 Eastern, here on YouTube for my TFGO game. This was fun as always. I think this podcast thing is getting a little better. Really want to get this up on the podcast platforms. I think that's going to be a goal for me when I'm in Mexico, because personally I love listening to podcasts. I don't have a ton, as many podcasts as I would like, so I'm hoping to get into that market. I love Middlecoff. I'll listen to Golick and Wingo. I'll listen to The Herd. The Ringer NFL show was great. I wish they did that daily, because Robert Mays and Kevin Clark are just two of the best in the business. If you don't listen to The Ringer, I know it's not smart to, direct people other ways, but, I think I do my own thing pretty well. And if you want more football content and you don't get enough from me and you're not listening to the Ringer NFL show, you're doing things the wrong way. I would say the same thing about John Middlecoff's show. Really just smart dude. He's kind of like me. He just kind of says what he wants and isn't afraid to offend anyone. That's a bit of a tangent, but hope you enjoyed the podcast. Looking forward to seeing what you guys say in the comments, and peace out. As always, have a good weekend. I know I will. Plenty of tequila for me. Make sure I bring my Rolaids. It's going to be a lot of heartburn, but it'll be worth it. Mai Tais, burritos, nachos, all inclusive. Probably just going to stay off Twitter, but that's going to be hard. All right. See you guys later. Thanks for listening. Have a good weekend.